Good morning, everyone. LJ here. How is everybody doing? LJ here, the Go Biz Guy, the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Well, I've been debating this for quite some time, and I thought, well, I'll do it. It's early in the morning. Oops. Sipping on some Sumatra, and I'm on my third cup. I had a bagel already, and so I just wanted to tonight is kind of an interesting process that we're going to see. Tonight is the debate, and I'd like to just kind of cover some things. It's been interesting to see the transition from Biden to, and I don't know, I don't know what to call her, Kamala Hamala. I mean, I don't know. I just and I don't want to get too political about Democrats, pros and cons. I think just the bottom line here is that they try to do a switch and bait, if you will, like advertising for TVs, et cetera. And it's quite interesting how the events have turned. Joe Biden was kind of taking a dip, and then they put Kamala Hamala in there, and then all of a sudden, she gets a buzz, and the campaign gets a buzz. She stays buzzed. What's now happened is that the trend of her seeing, they had to bus in some people from, I guess she was in Atlanta. I don't know. I can't keep up with her, but they had to bus people in to show that she was supported. So the buzz is starting to wear off. And now Trump is being hammered by this court stuff. And now and the timing of it is it's not like this is just spontaneous. This is a push to possibly put him in jail. And the Democrats are really moving forward. And I say that because, there's so many people that it's involved with politics at a high level. I don't want to go into an assassination attempt, and that's probably a whole other podcast. But I think it's very, very, very important that we understand the voting and the responsibilities that we have, because there are some significant impacts. I've always been of the thought that, and I'm not promoting that somebody else stay in there for 10 years. Because can you imagine having Kamala Hamala or Joey doing their thing and being in there for 10 years? But I just think what happens is, and I understand the Constitution a little bit and some things that need to happen, but what happens in our government is that like every 4 years or every 8 years, there's a dynamic change of policy. There's a dynamic change of taxes and all kinds of stuff. And then it takes, maybe a couple of years for that to trickle in. And then, so the next person gets elected and they ride the coattails of the success of whoever was in office. So I think I guess I want to call it an algorithm in politics that makes it pretty crazy for us to be stable, not stability, but to be stable in both the economy and the global economy. And I think those are very important things for us to hang our hat on, because we need a push. And I'm not advocating dictatorships if Trump gets elected. And believe you me, I'm a Trump fan. Go figure from what I just said about Kamala Hamala and Joey. But, I think that the way he governs is phenomenal, and some people don't like him. And I always tell people, I say, listen, well, he's from New York. And those of you that have New York friends or you've been up around New York, you know how they operate, okay? He's pretty brash, and that's just the way they are up there, okay? It's not like, down in the South and everything. I mean, if you look at the contrast between Trump and somebody like Jimmy Carter, I mean, they're a little bit difference there because of the difference in demographics. So I think voting, and I wanted to do this, and I'll push it out today rather than Thursday, because I think voting has a significant effect on the U.S. and global economies. And so, we have to understand the stability. We can look at foreign stuff like wars that are going on and everything. And, I just noticed the other day that Putin endorsed Kamala Harris. Well, of course, it's because he can take advantage of her if she's elected. And then we can see anyway, let's get back to the significant effects of the economies that are going to be affected. And we hear all the time about policy changes, and we hear about, what's happened, or, this thing is going on about healthcare, and that if Trump gets elected, he's going to veto everything and just squash it. And there's a little bit of momentum that happens every time somebody gets elected, but, policy changes, voting determines, how they're going to influence us and the conditions. Excuse me, I shouldn't burp on my podcast. Gee whiz, that's coffee and bagel stuff. Oh, here goes another one. Oops. It can lead to tax policies, regulatory environment things, government spending, and it has an effect. Just like, Kamala, she promotes herself and then promotes what she didn't do about the inflation, and she promotes the, milk and bread has gone up and everything. I forget. I think I was in CVS not too long ago, because I'm an alcoholic. I haven't gone into rehab yet, but I am an alcoholic. And so, what happened was that I could not believe a gallon of milk at CVS was like almost $6. And I'm thinking, dang, that's pretty expensive. So I think the bottom line is that there are going to be some direct effects on the next election. And those that and here I go. I've never done this before. I've never promoted, voting or whatever. Well, I've talked a little bit of politics in some of our podcasts, but I think what has to happen is that we have to understand that policies and taxes and everything has a direct effect on our living. And it also has an effect on so many other facets of our economy. So I think it's important that we vote. We've got to get out and vote. I had a situation where those of you that know, my wife passed, and I sold the house and I moved back to West Virginia to be next to my kids. And what a hassle to get the license and get everything transferred and everything. But I did that with a priority in order to vote. I mean, I didn't want to go back down to Kentucky and vote, but I was willing to do that. Should some of this license stuff and, get taken care of in a timely fashion, because that was my ultimate goal, was to get everything transferred so that I could vote. Because I think voting is a priority. And I know my grandson, his birthday, past his time to be 18, but he really wanted to vote. And I think, we misplace vote. We think, oh, well, the electoral college will put that person in place, but it's all geared towards votes. All right. So we've got to vote to have an effect on policy, tax policy, regulatory environments, et cetera. And I think one of the things, and I'm the reason why I have this podcast, because I'm very pro business. Okay. Very pro entrepreneur. I want to help. My hourly rate is $2.50 an hour. It's been a long time since I charged somebody that way, because I'll talk to a small business owner. I just want to see them succeed. Okay. But I think the business confidence, with political stability and anticipated policies that I'm sure that Trump will, will put into play, will have an effect on the confidence level, that we will see. Starting a business is not easy. It's not for everybody. There's always loopholes.
There's, 1 in 5 businesses will succeed. I can say, well, you have a business plan and everything. I don't know. I think if you have God on your side, you pray, I think he'll give you the ultimate decision and the ultimate guidance. But I think we have to understand that having business confidence is definitely stability. And so if we choose a leader um, who is going to foster our economy growth, it also then has a result of investment and expansion. I mean, you see the stock market. I mean, Joey and Kamala. I mean, they could probably say, "Oh well, look at the stock market." But, I mean, the stock market is built on confidence. And so I think it's important that we understand that we really need to be honest with you, we need to be pro-business in our thinking and the ideology. A lot of this other stuff is like the public services that we have. It's okay, it's cool, but I think that I mean, I'm on Social Security. I mean, and we hear that Social Security is going to be cut. We banter back and forth, and everybody beats everybody up. But I think that when we talk about public services and the infrastructure projects, I think that we really have to be in tune with the philosophy of the person you're going to be voting for that can have an effect on the economy and job creation. I mean, you know, post COVID, man, I mean, everybody blames COVID. All right. I mean, and that's a whole other podcast too, whether or not it was, created or whatever. But I think we really need to work on job creation. And what's really happening is that people are having a hard time finding employees, good employees. Okay. And it's really tough. So I think there needs to be some creativity that goes on in the workforce to treat, your employees right and everything. But I think we need to have a thing in mind that, what effects are we going to have, on job creation and everything. And I think then we talk about, another component of, kind of things that are happening in the U.S., but I think we talk about market reactions. Stock markets, really, again, those of you that know how the stock market works and the value and everything like that, crypto is crazy. But the election has an outcome based on investor expectations and, the future conditions of us. So it can lead to market volatility and shifts in investment strategies if that's the bottom line. That's what it's going to do. And I think that we keep that in mind as we vote because there's so many things that we've got to hang our hat on. If you want to be a socialistic country, then keep voting on the woke side, if you will, and you will have the results. Now I know I've been talked to by socialists and everything, and they have this perspective and everything, but I think we just need to have a perspective that we want the market to be significantly very powerful so that we can continue on with a very positive economy. And then, what happens in the U.S. spreads to other parts of the world. And, when we have a person in charge that has respect and has characteristics, because I think leadership is the ultimate role of a president of the United States. If they're a micromanager, you're going to see that. And if they're really sloppy you're going to see that as well. But I think the global, economy has an effect, and those components that are affected are like trade policies. Trade policies influence, international relations, man. Tariffs, relations between countries. And so I think again, I go back to Ronald Reagan era. I think, he was a great diplomat. And those, you go pro con. Who cares? You know what? God created us. We're not perfect. Okay. I think people sometimes want to vote on the basis, excuse me, bagel's coming up, but I think some people vote on the basis that the president, just almost like a pastor, ought to be perfect, and he's going to make mistakes, and so right or wrong, left or right, I think that we have to have you know the trade flows, the economic relations between countries is vital, and I think we need to kind of like hone in on that. I mean, and again, it's kind of like the U.S. economy. We need to have a global confidence as well, and so it does always have a ripple effect, impacting investments and the economy stability. I spoke one time to I think it was West Virginia Hospitality or Hospital Association, and that was way back. And so I'm not a prophet or the son of a prophet, but I indicated that the money is being monitored, like around the global the dollars, like yen, and everything like that. And I said, we have to be kind of honed in on how people are looking at different economies or different currency, I should say, and so how it's evaluated and everything. So my point is that if we're not careful, I mean, we could go to a one world currency. Now, I'm not advocating one world government and everything, but we're pretty close to that almost, But it has a ripple effect, and I think it really our investments and economic stability plays a role in that. I think international agreements too can have an effect on global agreements like climate change, uh, international aid, voting decisions. I think, and then there's some positive things, but there's also some negative things that are going on around the world and everything. And we see an influx of human trafficking all over the world. I mean, even on a local basis. So I think there's some international stuff that has to be done, closing of the borders, etc. The currency will always fluctuate, and the U.S. dollar, if it's not done in a orderly way, then we're going to see a lot of holes shot through it, and there's not going to be. The economy has a lot to do with this. So I think voting shapes the economy policies. And it conditions domestically and international, and it influences everything from market stability and global trade relations. I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell on why we should vote. But what does the Bible say about God's appointed leaders? Okay, this is interesting because I think we have to understand God's perspective rather than man's perspective, and that's really the bottom line. I think if we talk about sovereignty and leadership, Romans talks about let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established, and the authorities that exist have been established by God, and that's Romans 13:1 and 2. So I think, that, I'm not going to get into, Calvinistic perspective of predestination and all that other stuff, but God has a foreknowledge, and He has, um, His divine purpose is greater than we can ever imagine. And the reason why it's like that is because of the faith element. I think we have to have faith in His guidance, and we can't do anything on our own. So I think divine sovereignty and leadership is really critical. I think when we talk a lot about the purpose of leadership, I think we talk about submitting yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human authority, whether to the emperor as a supreme authority or to governors who are set by him to punish those who do wrong and condemn those who do right. 1 Peter 2:13 through 14. So I think the purpose of a leadership, God has really outlined. If you look at the Roman Empire, if you look at a lot of the history in churches and the way God established everything, there's always been I guess a better term. I call it a pecking order. But I think we have to understand that there's a purpose, and then there's a responsibility of leaders. Leaders are held to a really high, and we put them on the box, like I mentioned earlier about voting and everything, and they have to be. Then we have dictators, okay, but there are responsibilities, and so not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will judge more strictly. And that's from James 3:1. And so there is a responsibility of all those. I think if you look at the historical examples in the Bible, you talk about the anointing of David, and by the prophet Samuel illustrates by God, appoints leaders, and his own plans, purpose, they're are not immediately apparent to others, right? And I think that's so I don't know, maybe this is very dogmatic, but so if you like vote for Kamala, and she's really not trying to be a chameleon out there, and I think that we'll see tonight how um, how she's a chameleon, because she's now endorsing small businesses. She's endorsing closing the border and everything. She hasn't done that for 3 years. Okay. And so, there are responsibilities. And so, at any rate, the bottom line here is to all of this. Okay. And it, is prayer, because, prayer leads us, it should encourage us to pray. And even, it's difficult for me, to pray for someone like Kamala when I don't like her. I don't like her position. I don't like anything about her. And I don't like the Democrats a lot. I mean, I have friends that are Democrats, but by and large, I have a hard time, praying for those that are in office that I have no, belief system, in their ideologies, and their, political aspirations. So, me being a Republican, I mean, you go figure. But like Trump, I'll pray for him, even though I don't like him 100%. Excuse me, another burp. But I think it's just bottom line is that we need to pray for our leaders. And 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2, talk about we ought to urge then first all petitions, prayers, and intercessions, thanksgiving, be made for all people, for kings, and all in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all goodness and holiness. And that's 1 Timothy 2. So overall, the Bible conveys that God is sovereign, and He's overall becoming who becomes leader. There's a strong emphasis and responsibility of leaders to govern and justify importance of praying for them. The principle of divine sovereignty and moral responsibility in prayer are really central to everything that God has to say about a political view. And so this is kind of a short, sweet podcast, but it's just something that I wanted to share and I'll be posting this, but I wanted to share it because of tonight's debate, and because voting is right around the corner. And I just pray that you all do your due diligence and get out and vote, and be sure that you keep in mind these factors that we talked about, that we vote for our leaders, and we pray for this whole election process. It could be crazy. There could be all kinds of stuff. But at any rate, I don't want to get into I don't want to say theological stuff, but let's just kind of dive into that. And let's vote, okay? Because your vote counts. It's not like if I don't vote, and everything, and people use all these excuses. But like I said earlier, man, when I moved to West Virginia to be next to my kids, and then that was the main objective. But the other main objective was I want to vote. I think it's important that we have a passion to do that and everything. Well, have a blessed day and great sharing this and see you. Bye. Well,